Hey guys, it's Caroline, and I was just sitting down to write a blog post about perfectionism because I've had a ton of conversations with my clients and also a few conversations online about perfectionism recently. And so I was sitting down to write this blog post, and I realized, knowing myself, sometimes writing is when my own perfectionist tendencies come out because I'm trying to tweak the words and get the exact phrasing right. I figured what better opportunity than to jump on camera with my crazy post-yoga hair, my cleaning products in the background. You can't see it, but there's a giant pile of laundry behind me. So I thought, what better opportunity to talk about perfectionism? Oh, perfect, there's a siren in the background. So what better opportunity to actually show the beauty of imperfection and the value in the quirks and all that sort of stuff. And so for me, this is my version of the siren is so loud right now. Sorry, guys. It's perfect, actually. It's perfect, perfectly imperfect. But what I wanted to talk about is the idea. Let's first step back and talk definitionally about perfectionism. So it's the idea that there is an ideal out there that you have to achieve, right? Which is impossible to do. That's why perfectionism stops us in our tracks so often, or slows down our momentum or our movement, because it's an impossible goal, right? And so if you have any awareness that this is actually an impossible goal, how motivated are you going to be to actually take action? So what I think is really interesting in people's career changes and in their job search a lot of times is this ideal they're going after is not even their own ideal, right? It's an ideal that's out there that's maybe very salient or very visible that they think they have to do it that way. So let me explain. I've talked about this in some other videos, but I think it fits here as well. So let's say that you have a non-traditional career path, right? And so a lot of people, that stops them in their tracks, right? Because they have this idea in their head that the perfect way to do something is to go from point A to point B to point C, so on and so forth. And so they don't take action. They take themselves out of the running because already they've missed this ideal. And so they downplay their ability to actually use the fact that maybe they went from point A to point Z and then back to point M. They miss the opportunity to see how that actually sets them apart and to see how that imperfection, if you will, actually can be a real selling point, right? Another place I see it, which I've talked a lot about in my networking videos, is people holding up this ideal of how they're supposed to be, whether it's informational interviews or networking or interviews, like this persona that they're supposed to take on, or this role that they're supposed to play, or the things that they're supposed to be able to do, rather than just coming into the conversation and saying, let me level with you, right? I just had a conversation with someone who I just met, and it's very suited to the conversation. We were talking about hopes and dreams, right? And we were just kind of laughing about, we kind of skipped the perfunctory kind of small talk and just got straight into the meat of what we wanted to talk about, which I think endeared us to one another, right? Is that we were willing to kind of not follow the rules and follow the path of how some people think things are going to need to go. And again, a lot of these examples are specific to me that I'm using, and this is my version of imperfection and leaning into my quirks. But I really give them to you so that you can actually reflect on, what would be your own approach to these situations. So let's play this out a little bit. Let's say that your career history you feel like is less than ideal and it puts you at a disadvantage. And maybe you don't even actually think that. Maybe you're thinking that other people will think this about you, right? So I challenge you to say, well, if you could say anything about your career history, forget about how you're supposed to present it and what the perfect resume looks like and how you're supposed to be in the interview. If you could have the conversation with that person that you want to have, how would that go? Right? And it feels so freeing to be able to have those authentic conversations, because that's the other main thing that we lose when we're going after someone else's perfectionistic ideal. We're losing our authentic selves. We're saying it's not okay. We got to hide and tamp down the weirdo things about us or the quirky things about us. And as you know, I'm like 100% about quirk. It's probably my best strength, is my quirkiness. And if I have to tamp that down, and if I'm not allowed to do that, it's not only exhausting for me and not super motivating. Well, I think it's probably going to be pretty hard to connect, for that other person to connect with the real me. And even if you think about this practically, right? So let's say that you go through and you hit all the right notes that you think you're supposed to hit to be as perfect as possible in the job search process, as you're talking to people, as you're handing out your resume, as you're going after these positions. So let's say that you've put all of that forward, but that's not 100% what you value or how you actually want to be. You've either boxed yourself into, well, now you have to act that way when you get into the job, right? Because it's like this persona and this ideal you that you've created. Or they're attracted and they want to hire you for someone you're actually not. You're actually playing the role of this ideal person that isn't actually you. So I really want you to think about this, and I want you to think, like I said, think about the conversations you want to have. Think about, how you could talk to people ideally in your own definition, how you can define success for you versus what you think the perfect idea of success should be or what others have told you are. And I'd love to hear your comments. I think this idea of perfectionism being totally antithetical to authenticity is really interesting. And one other thing I'll say is, I think it's so interesting that on the one hand, so many people complain about social media, right? In that it's so exhausting because there are a subset of people that will put forth this perfect ideal image of their lives, right? When we all kind of know that life isn't like that, or maybe we assume that their life is perfect. I don't know what your interpretation is. But I hear so many people saying that that's such a turnoff, either because they don't believe the person or because they can't connect because it's so far away from what they're experiencing, or it actually makes them feel bad because, again, they don't have that ideal themselves. And then, and even though they have that response to social media, then when they go out and they live their lives, and when they're going after a job and interviewing, they think that they have to live up to that ideal. So I think that's just a really interesting dichotomy. If you could, to use the social media example, if you could be in life and in your job search the kind of real, authentic, kind of flawed, but beautifully flawed person that you want others to be, how would that change things for you, right? I think it's a really interesting conversation to have because people really, at least in their conversations with me, I think they're craving that realness. They're craving that, I had a really bad day. And I'll tell you, the people that I'm drawn to online or in person are the ones that are authentic and vulnerable, right? It is naturally connective because you're like, I feel that way too. Or, gosh, that gives me permission to not have to hold it together all the time. So in closing, this has been a very imperfect, more rambly than usual video probably. So I would love to hear what your thoughts are. I would love you to share with me what comes up for you based on the prompts, right? When you really think about what is your ideal? Forget about everyone else's. What is your ideal for the thing that you want to go after? And if you could go out there and just have the conversations and put yourself forward for these positions, or create even the positions you create, if you could create the job that you want to create, forget about what you think is the ideal. I would love to hear these things because that really is where the beauty is. That's where the creativity is. That's where you set yourself apart. And it really is value in a way that perfectionism is not. So let me know your thoughts and have a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye.